Now we commence the inaugural session of the day. Welcome Mr. Lieutenant General J.S. Ahluwalia, President IOD, to please deliver his welcome address.
It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all for this IOD special 29th Annual Day as well as the Directors Conclave. People who are partners with us, I would like to welcome them also. That is the ACCA UK, they're here, Institute of Risk Management UK, and the Dubai Multi-Commodity Center. As you all know, IOD is a membership association, not-for-profit apex organization of corporate directors in India, mainly responsible for training and updating of directors, including independent and women directors. I really look forward to a very rich and interactive deliberations today and wish the convention all the best. Thank you.
First, all good wishes to the Institute of Directors on your annual day. What is the need and purpose of repeat conferences, conversations, seminars, and workshops taking place on the role of boards? What has changed? Boards have been around in companies forever. So what is suddenly the new thing that we need to deliberate and talk about this publicly on repeat occasions? Because if you think about it, what you could do, what was considered normal 30 years ago for companies and boards, would get most board members into jail today. The change in what society accepts is normal is one of the big changes that is taking place in our expectation of companies and their behavior, and therefore the leadership of the boards.
Before I begin, I must congratulate Lieutenant General Ahluwalia, President IOD, for excellent work being done by this institution. And I must congratulate you on the excellent subject of sustainability being taken up today. So sustainability is the most important subject we need to understand, because if we are not going to exist in this world, I don't think we can do business. We need to restrict our consumption. If we are not going to restrict our consumption, I don't think we'll have a happy world. I don't think we'll have a sustainable world. So consumption, controlling consumption is an answer. And as our directors, as the board, we need to control whether consumption is the right direction or not. Valuable growth and a wasteful growth. Anything which is a wasteful growth needs to be curtailed. Any growth which is a valuable growth needs to be identified. And as a society, as human beings, if we'll do that, I think we'll have a more sustainable world.
For every Indian, sustainability should be a matter of faith and commitment. 2015, India was signatory of Paris Agreement, and India was not a follower then. India established itself as a leader. Our Honorable Prime Minister has talked about conservation of wildlife and also the forest, which I need not underscore. He has also talked about avoiding the single use of plastic. How many of us have started taking kapde ka thaila and going and avoiding the single plastic use? So I think all of us in our small way can contribute for making the future sustainable for our better generation.
Good governance, as we all know, is not only important for corporates, it's even more important for society. Good corporate governance improves the public's faith and confidence in its corporate leadership. Recent events have shown to us the effect that corporates have on society, the national economy, and the future of this country as a whole. The new focus on corporate social responsibility further increases the responsibility of corporates and its accountability to stakeholders. Companies that recognize that their business impacts the environment around them develop a sense of accountability to their societies and a strong concern for the future.
I now request Mr. Girish Chandra Murmu, Secretary, Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, to kindly release the conclave souvenir. In the souvenir just released by Mr. Murmu, there is a very inspiring address sent to the IOD by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. And I quote the Prime Minister, it's timely and relevant. So I'm grateful to the Prime Minister.
So how do you get the right directors? You must first ask yourself, what kind of directors I am looking for? One of the prescriptions is gender diversity. The problem is that because you needed gender diversity, you started interpreting diversity as being only gender diversity. You need to get several other kinds of diversities. Look at age, for example. There are boardrooms where the average age is 65 plus. I'm not complaining, I'm a lot older than that. But that's not the board of the future. You need younger people. Younger people in any case ask questions. The difference between people of my generation and the people of the next generation is we had the questions we were afraid to ask. Youngsters are not afraid to ask the questions, and you need questions asked in boardrooms.
I sat on another board of a publicly listed company, and then I saw the promoters. They had this diverse, all these independent directors, and the independent directors would spend 80% of the time talking to these people with this. And then I went out and, in one of a private conversation, I said, you seem to be listening to your independents a lot. At the end of the day, you're the owner. You also need to put your point across and step up. And then I learned, over my course of that 5 years, that there's a time that comes, and this is what boards need to understand, that owners need to listen. And I think that's something that we don't do enough. So there is value in us listening. It's a quality which is highly underrated. So I want to give an owner's perspective that we do learn a lot when we listen.
We have been watching and reading in media about various developments regarding directors, regarding boards. Directors and even the independent directors are submitting their resignation. Auditors are resigning from the task given to them, or they are even refusing to take up new assignments. Action is taken against credit rating agencies. The whole ecosystem is today in a certain amount of confusion that what is happening. People are also worried about rules being changed too often, too frequently, and where is it going to stop? What is the method? What is the rule? What is the situation which is finally going to be in existence within which they have to function?
After that absolutely fantastic feast of ideas from Mr. Sinha, I want to begin by first thanking IOD for putting corporate governance into all our minds at such a high pitch. Sir, what has happened in 29 years will have to be further emphasized, as Mr. Sinha pointed out, and taken across international borders, as I was discussing with Mr. Chaturvedi just before this session. I'm inspired by the presence of Mr. Thakral here to take you through a journey, my journey, as an audit committee member. And I would like to put myself to the test of accountability, Mr. Sinha.
We seem to be entirely focused on independent directors, forgetting for a moment that there is a category called functional directors in PSUs and a category called executive directors. By the way, I always consider India only has PSUs. It's public sector units or promoter sector units. They are all PSU. The question is, does that automatically translate into a governance mindset? And do we have a responsibility to build that governance mindset in executive directors and functional directors as they step into boards?
The entire world is evolving and growing. Every year there is some changes globally. Now it is a globalized economy. You have lot of practices, lot of other best practices. When this kind of event takes place, there is a lot of exchange of ideas and the regulations across the world, how that has benefited or where it is required some rectification, that kind of exchanges with eminent speaker coming and with their rich experience that really helps to grow and that contribute to the corporate world.
I think today if you look at the global scenario, there is a fairly large amount of changes that are coming in. Change in terms of technology, change in terms of education, change in terms of globalization. People call it as Industry 4.0, Globalization 4.0, Education 4.0. And as a result of that, the organizations or enterprises are changing. So the result is companies are under tremendous amount of challenges. So I think this conference is addressing some of those challenges.
I think that the role of directors is coming under a lot of scanner today. I personally believe that there is an obsolescence which is setting in the old way of doing it, and therefore thinking of directors of the future is very critical. I truly believe that in the industrial age, the directors had more governance matters, but in the growth age, in the innovation age, the director's role is changing, and therefore this conference on the future of what the board of directors is very relevant and very critical.
I was looking at how the IOD has evolved over time. We have been talking about the future of the companies, but future of an organization like IOD could not have been predicted way back in 2001 when I attended the first conference of IOD, Institute of Directors. That was a time when we were getting to come to terms with the fact that there's something like corporate governance and how important governance is, good governance is for companies.
We put a lot of emphasis on skill development. Unless there is self-development, people development, character development, all your skill development will is waste. We need to get it right. Globally, it is really the trust factor that people find in the corporate world. It has gone down badly, and I think we need it to be revived all the way.
Most of the people today in the government are ahead of the curve. We are talking about water issues at the moment, we are talking about housing, affordable housing, we are talking about infrastructure. I want to emphasize on the word strategy, and I read a small anecdote about a person in Kashmir who outside his shop put up very boldly and very strategically, I would rather prefer to do business with 1,000 Pakistani terrorists than one Indian soldier. And this was something which was very weird, which people found to be very, very strange that somebody is proclaiming so loudly, and yet both the sets of people are befriending him. One did not know what his business was, and the other went and found out what his business was. So they said, okay, good, keep it up. His business was of funerals and making coffins. So his strategy was, I prefer to do business with 1,000 Pakistani terrorists than one Indian soldier. Very, very strategic and very, very sustainable form of business.
The fast pace of technology, which we've talked about today as well, which indeed creates a number of ambiguous situations and risks, give us also a lot of opportunities for organizations and their boards to be able to lead and navigate and deal with any topics from new business models to the ethical dilemmas that we have to contend with. So the work that we undertake, that the Institute of Directors undertake in building ethical leadership and helping instill the right values and behaviors in the boardroom is only going to become more crucial, and we're here to further support it.
We are just beginning our process of urbanization. The process of urbanization has ended across America, it's ended across Europe, it's nearing its completion in China. But in India, as I speak here today, every minute there are 30 Indians who move from rural areas to urban areas. If you go by the latest McKinsey study, by 2050, there'll be over about 500 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization. Therefore, the real challenge for India will be to do sustainable urbanization. The challenge is to create two Americas and do it in a sustainable manner.
Award winners were felicitated at the Institute of Directors Distinguished Fellowship 2019.
The first IOD Distinguished Fellowship 2019 goes to Mr. Durga Shankar Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing.
I'm extremely humbled by the honor conferred on me by the Institute of Directors. We have been doing everything possible towards the sustainability, whether it is our different urban missions, the smart city mission, housing and our Prime Minister's Awas, that is housing for all, to the Atal mission for infrastructure, Swachh Bharat mission, everywhere. Our major focus is sustainability.
The next recipient of the IOD Distinguished Fellowship 2019 is Mr. Sumanto Chaudhary, a very distinguished civil servant from the West Bengal cadre.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a great humbling moment, and let me thank IOD for conferring this award on me. So I'll change the tone of the tenor of this discussion a bit and talk a little about sustainability of the global trading system. And I think one of the lessons that we've all learned in terms of globalization and its experience has been the fact that somewhere down the line, we probably forgot about sustainability. And that's one of the reasons why the kind of backlash that has been seen in the world against globalization, that is one of, I think, the key contributory features. And I think that's a lesson that we all need to take, and a lesson that we need to incorporate now in all that we do in terms of our economic engagement, both domestically and more so internationally.
Thank you, Sumanto. And the last award of the day goes to Mr. Shashi Shankar, a very distinguished Chief of the Public Sector, ONGC.
Let me thank Institute of Directors and the jury for this great honor. I humbly accept this honor as a recognition of the value system of our 31,000 strong workforce and the leadership. On the World Environment Day, in front of Honorable Prime Minister, I had taken two pledges. First one was to stop use of single plastic across the organization, and the second one was introduction of paperless office, that is DISA. I'm very happy to inform that on both these fronts, we have successfully implemented both the schemes.
I would now request the Honorable Shri Puri.
I think you've chosen well in terms of the theme. You know,
leading strategies to a strategy to embrace sustainability. In the three ministries, or rather the three areas with which I am associated, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for the longest period, nearly 2 years, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Commerce and Industry now. No matter how you view our growth story, I think issues of corporate governance and what happens in the private sector economic entities and the boards is central to our understanding and in terms of the steps that we need to take to drive forward to, one, the 2030 agenda completion, when from being a $2.89 trillion economy, we're hoping to be a $5 trillion economy by 2024 and a $10 trillion economy by 2030.
DMCC, backed by the government of Dubai, is relentless in pursuing success, growing exponentially each year, driving more and more global trade through the city, which is essentially our job. Sustainability should be at the heart of any growth agenda for business, large or small. And it is clearly why I'm so pleased to see a room packed with people who clearly prescribe to the same view.
I want to talk about what really makes an effective board. We've heard about it from very, very luminary speakers all through the day. A great board hides in few alphabets: 1 C, 2 Ds, and an E. The composition is very critical. So how you choose your board is very critical. It should be diverse, it should be business enabling.
Well, we're always pleased to support IOD Global because they have such a wide reach among Indian companies, and they're also very forward-thinking. We're the Institute of Risk Management. Although we're based in London, we've got members all around the world, and our particular specialisation is enterprise risk management, which is any risks that can affect an organisation achieving its objectives. And IOD Global have been very quick to pick up enterprise risk management as something that they encourage organisations here in India to become very competent in.
Good governance in the corporate world is a very important agenda nowadays, because and for this purpose the conclaves like this gives insights and also brings people together to achieve that objective. So IOD undertakes large number of training programs, and annual conclaves like this makes a meeting of the minds and bringing out better ideas for good governance, setting the objectives and adopting proper strategies. All these aspects are discussed with experts, and it is a very wonderful event.
It is very, very important for us to make people understand what is the role of a director in this country. Because, you know, a lot of compliances are coming up and a lot of directors who do not know what is the corporate governance and what is women empowerment and what is independent directors and other things. So, Institute of Directors has been having to play a major role in making people understand, the organizations understand the role of the directors in this country.
No, I think it's very, very critical. Boards have to play a very critical role in today's time. I think we look at the way the world is changing and the speed of it is changing. I think boards have to really move up. And I think IOD does a good job in getting very interesting topics and very good speakers to talk about it. I think it's very, very beneficial. So I enjoyed the talk and I really like being here.
One of the things that you've been seeing of late is the number of companies which have been failing, not because of market conditions, not because something has gone wrong in the economy, but because the standard of governance or the standard of risk management in these companies was not very robust. My congratulations to the Institute of Directors, because they've been doing yeoman service to the country in terms of educating directors, mainly independent directors, in terms of what are the things that are relevant, what are the things that are good, and what are the things that are essential for taking care of shareholder interest.